We have as our guest today Jim Rajan. Now, Jim is an empath and an intuitive healer, and Jim plays the bansuri, which is a traditional North Indian folk instrument. And the sound of the flute is very deeply meditative, and so is his poetry. His mentors are Jiddu Krishnamurti, Kahlil Gibran, Rabindranath Tagore, and Deepak Chopra. So it's over to Jim. Do you have to endure a personal tragedy, or does something have to jolt you out of your mundane existence to go into the seeking the truth? Is that something common with all truth seekers?
What a fantastic question. Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I yeah, so I'm half Indian, I'm half English. I was born in the UK. I was born in the UK in a moment when that was, it was a very specific time. There was a lot of racism. I found a lot of racism at school, but I wouldn't say that caused so much suffering that it made me seek a way. I think really I came to this life with a need to with a need to know more. What I saw, what I saw in front of me, the material world, just it didn't make sense. It wasn't enough. It didn't give me. It didn't feed my thirst or my hunger for life, or the hunger for life that I came with.
Mhm.
And then along the way, I had some very specific and difficult levels of suffering,
Right.
and those really did shape me. And in a way, what they did was they completely destroyed what I understood about life, and they made
Okay.
it all really meaningless. And so I was left with no meaning. And human beings have a thirst. We have a need for meaning, whether it's big or small. We need meaning, And so I really would answer by saying, I think everyone has a real need to move forward in their life and understand their life and have understanding and meaning. And however you are directed by life in that, you go with it, feel it, see that that's happening, understand what's actually happening, understand that the suffering is enlightenment, and go with it, and don't resist. It's too easy to resist.
Right. So, would it be fair to sum it up and say that the seed of the seeking, the urge to seek, is in every human being, and suffering kind of brings it out, or pours water on the seed? Would you think that's a fair statement?
I think so, absolutely. I do feel very strongly that many of us are conditioned in a very specific way um, from day one of entering this life,
Right.
um, from all different levels, family, education, country, what have you.
Right.
And that really, it kind of puts a blinkers on us. It reduces our field of vision. In a way, it stops a lot of us even questioning why. And we are bombarded so much that many of us eventually just say, oh, right, well, yeah, life is like that. Yeah, that's what life is. This happens, then this happens, this happens. I go to school, then I go to high school, then I go to university, then I get a master's degree, then I get a PhD, then I do all of the stuff that life tells me I'm supposed to do. But then I'm completely empty at the end of it, wondering why. And it's because there is that search for more, that wish to understand, that wish to have one's own personal understanding of life. that religion often helps a lot with, or spirit or spiritual practice, or whatever you want to call it. There are so many ways for one to find oneself, or to understand oneself. On the other hand, many of us have incredibly deep, painful moments of suffering that force the issue. Yeah.
I see a thread of commonality between Gautama Buddha, between Eckhart Tolle, and many others who have, gone on to the path of realization, and some of them who have realized with a certain degree of suffering that has caused them to kind of go onto that path. So that's why I asked you that question, because I know about your daughter's cancer and how she recovered and everything.
Yeah.
So okay, so you talk about visualizations. Now, I've some years back I've read a book by, I think it was by Shakti Gawain, Creative Visualizations, and I was quite impressed by that book. But I've always had this little amount of a kind of, I wouldn't call it a doubt, but I'm not very clear if, are we substituting one reality with another? Is that what we're doing when we visualize?
I think there's only one reality, really.
True.
This one, the one that you're actually living in, breathing in, and able to touch. I love that book as well, Shakti Gawain's book. In visualization, I don't think we're substituting anything. I think what we're doing is we are implementing an ability or a tool or a power that we as human beings have innately, which is the ability to use our imagination and mix it with our own will to live, change, transform, move forward, consume, love. When you mix imagination with your needs, it creates transformation in your life. It's impossible that it cannot do that. Your imagination is everything that I sit here in my studio. Everything around me has been created by someone's imagination,
right?
Including the clothes that I wear. So, for me, I like to see these things in a very down-to-earth way. I use visualizations and I teach visualization.
Yes, I know.
Because what it does is it opens a door to an auto storytelling. I get to organize, create my own story of my own life, how I understand it, that's different from everyone else's, that means something to me. And it drives me to live in a particular way. At the moment, for example, I'm doing live visualization workshops on a platform called Insight Timer, which is a great app.
Yes.
And so many people afterwards, they send me these wonderful emails of this amazing story of the visualization that they saw within their mind's eye or their mind or whatever you want to call it. And this, so much so that they've written it down, and it's enormous and it's incredible, and they share it with me. And what they share with me is the passion for their life that has given them. Human beings, we love stories. Storytelling is one of the oldest things. And so when you create your own story and you see it clearly in your mind's eye, it's real. It's not a reality that's different from the one I'm living in. It's another facet of the power of the human mind or the human psyche. I don't know what the word is there, but you understand what I mean, no?
Yeah, I get it. Like I said, I mean, it's that a temporary euphoria, like you would hit the bottle and then you'd still feel a different universe that you live in. So I mean,
Yeah, that's very true.
is this a non-chemical euphoria that you get by visualization? Is that was my
Well,
question.
I think, you know, you get there is alcohol, there is all kinds of drugs, there are all kinds of
Right.
medical drugs
Yeah.
that produce a feeling or a sensation in your body,
Hmm.
and that is as real as you may well feel it,
Hmm.
of course. Um, but does it really create a lasting impression that's you know that you will remember 20 years later and go, ah,
Right.
yeah, you know, that moment changed my life? Yes, you can have some of those moments with you know, with these entertaining things that
Right.
we human beings have produced in life, but none of them really create for you. I mean, I work, I have a lot of clients. I have clients all over the world. Many of
Hmm.
them ask me about things like ayahuasca or peyote, you know, and
Right.
all of these kind of sacred plant medicines.
Right.
And while, yes, many people have really deep, incredible experiences on these things,
Hmm.
you also open something
Hmm.
within your personal space
Hmm.
that doesn't get closed afterwards.
Ah. Okay.
I really find a lot of people who use cannabis or marijuana, whatever you like to call it,
Uh-huh.
you know, they open something and they feel more creative and they feel like they're more connected to something.
Right.
But the problem is that you've caused damage to your one of the subtle bodies. You know, your body doesn't just finish here, and so
Okay.
you've opened something that doesn't close, and then
Ah.
over the years that non-closure produces depression, anxiety, feelings of low self-esteem, all kinds of different things.
Wow.
Whereas
Okay.
simple visualization work that has no negative no negative drawbacks or side effects,
Hmm.
because it all comes from you. It comes from the pureness of yourself as a human being.
Hmm. Yeah, that answers my question. Thank you. Um, some of your mentors, you say, are Deepak Chopra, Rabindranath Tagore, and Jiddu Krishnamurti. Now,
Mm.
Deepak Chopra and Rabindranath Tagore probably would go in line with the visualizations aspect, but Jiddu Krishnamurti,
No, no, but what I love about Krishnamurti is his blunt black and whiteness.
yeah.
Like my dad, he gave me I can't remember which book it is. It's probably in my bookshelf right in front of my face, but I don't remember what it's called. The first book I read of his, and one of the first things I read in it, or that really struck me, I must have been about 18 years old, was how separation produces conflict.
Mm.
No, one of his, and I understood it in a certain way at that age.
Hmm.
And then I went and read that book again, probably 5 years later, and I understood that in a much deeper way. And then I've kept reading that book again and again and again. And each time I understand separation produces conflict in a far different way. Um, I know the story of Krishnamurti and how he rejected the fact that he was supposed to be this amazing spiritual leader.
Yes.
And I love that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful. So
Yeah.
he stood up in front of an entire race of human beings and said, "You want this from me, and I'm not doing it. I refuse to give you that." Now
Yeah.
that's balls. That's someone
Yeah.
who has real inner
Absolute.
strength.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, what is spirituality if it's not creating one's own vital life force, if it's not creating one's own inner strength? But most of us, we have this idea of spirituality as I devote myself to something outside of me,
Right.
which is completely the opposite of what Krishnamurti said. He said there's nothing outside of you.
Exactly.
You are everything.
Yeah.
And so be it, do it, go through the hard things, live the hardnesses of life, and also know that the wonderfulness of life comes with that. that there is always both sides. I love Krishnamurti. He's always been one of my favorites. In fact, for me, he's more of a stalwart. He's a real reference, because he really stood by. I can't fault anything. But then,
Right.
for example, Chopra, wonderful books, love Chopra. But then sometimes you catch him saying something on YouTube, or he says this, and you're just like, just the tiniest chink in armor is enormous in someone of that
Exactly.
stature.
I can't agree with you more.
So I love his book, the 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. Just as I love Eckhart Tolle. But but Krishnamurti is someone who I believe in as well.
Right.
It's different.
Right. And just another example of his strength of conviction was, I don't know how familiar you are with India, but there is a state in down south called Madras, which also happens to be my hometown. My erstwhile hometown, rather. So there, at one time, I think it was in the late 60s, early 70s, there was, he was holding one of these satsangs, if you could call them that. There was one person who got up and asked, give me a direct answer, is there God or no God? So he had the courage in that society to stand up and say that you created God, God didn't create you.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so that was the strength of his conviction. Anyway,
and he's gone past that, and he's not just said yes or no.
No,
he said, what's your personal conditioning? What's your understanding of life? Because I could tell you that any number of magical, wonderful miracles that God may have created or not, but it means nothing to you.
Right.
I'm a big believer in this theory that nothing really exists, and everything that's in my life is just a projection of my subconscious mind to give me lessons, to teach me stuff. So I've come to this life to learn stuff. Some of that learning has been brutal. Some of it has been wonderful. Some of it's been kind of mediocre. But that's why I'm here. And so when you separate yourself from life, instead of life being this thing that smashes you in the face 500 times a day, then you can answer a question like that, just how Krishnamurti did. No? Fantastic.
Right. Yeah, I've heard this thing about coming down to the earth plane to learn lessons and then go learn the lesson and go back. So now my question is, what was the entity that needed learning in the first place? If it's from a source of all-knowing, then why did it have to descend to this earth plane, learn lessons, and then go back? So what was the lesson that had to be learned, and what was the lesson to be needed? Because it starts from a point of all-knowing, right?
How do you know that?
By sheer extrapolation of an argument, like how Krishnamurti would.
I mean, how can anyone know anything? How can anyone know what happens when you die? How can anyone know if reincarnation exists? How can you actually know if we all came to this plane to learn stuff? For me, that is how I have created regulation or organization or structure within my own existence, so that I can live this life in a way that provides value to others. And so really, as long as it doesn't matter what your belief is, you can really go anywhere with what any of the beliefs that, what you see as life, or how you understand that we came to this life with, from the all-knowing. For example, that I cannot question it. Can I? There is no answer. There is no correct answer. But what I can say is, well, what are you going to do with that? What is the point of having that information if you don't do something with it? If you don't take action and create value for either yourself or for someone else or a group of people or your society or your community or your world. So I mean, there's all kinds of people who practice all kinds of different forms of Buddhism, and or mindfulness is a wonderful one. I mean, for example, I know a person who goes on mindfulness retreats, and they go and they eat vegan food and they are in silence for X amount of hours every day and all the rest of it. And wonderful. And then they live in this kind of peaceful, wonderful magic. But then they go back to their real life, which is awful. And they hate their wife and they shout at their kids and they hate their job, and they haven't got any money. And they're all like, well, life is awful. Life is terrible. No. And so let's really understand that you are a person who can use your life, or you are a person who can be used by your life. So if you're a person who uses your life, then you might go on one of these wonderful retreats and vegan food and silence and all the rest of it, and come back and use that in some way to bring value to your world.
Which again is a projection of your own mind, right?
Yeah, really. I mean, yeah, for me, that is the most important thing. For me, I mean, I talk to a lot of people who have their very specific spiritual understanding of the world, or they have a very powerful, strong religious, they live by a religious context. And it's great. That's wonderful. I have no right to say you're right and I'm wrong, or I'm right and you're wrong. All I have the right to say is your actions produce something that is good or something that is not good. And then I gauge whether or not it's good for me to be around a person like that. So I think when you get to the core of it, and my work as a distance healer is really about helping people get to the very core of their existence, to the base frequency in their life. No, when you take someone there and they really see all of the games they play, and they see all of the things that they do that just have no sense that they do because somebody told them to do them when they were 10 years old, and that, oh well, that's what you do. All right, okay, well that's what I do. You know, when you really when you help someone peel back the layers of all of the conditioning and all of the other people's stories that they've taken on, and they can see the true nature of things for themselves, it's impossible that person cannot create value in their life. And that for me is the key.
Okay. You talk a lot about affirmations too, positive affirmations. How different are they from self-hypnosis? Are they there? Is it the same thing, or is it something else? Or
well, you see, hypnosis does have a kind of negative connotation, doesn't it? It's like, oh, I'm hypnotizing myself.
Yeah,
so I'm taking power, or I'm taking control away from myself, or I have power over. You know, if you use Instagram, for example, there are adverts of how to learn how to hypnotize people. In a context of how to have power over someone, how to get someone to do something. So for me, I use affirmations because I believe in them, and because they're really a powerful way to force the mind to not just run riot in your life. Because that's what most of us do. We just let the mind make all the decisions. We let the mind run chaos a lot of the time, and we think that we are our mind. But for me, when you, for example, you have you might use an affirmation of today I'm, they need to be in a continuous present context. So today I am incredibly happy. Let's say you're not. Let's say you're really sad, and that something awful and painful has happened to you very recently, and that you really are having trouble getting out of that mindset, that mentality, that feeling, that emotional state. You as a human being have the power to achieve anything. There is nothing that you cannot achieve, especially within yourself, if you use the right tools. So I use affirmations as a tool to, in a way, to batter down the mind and its power so that I become the master of it. So that I use it to calculate. I make sure I don't get run over when I cross the road, because my mind is calculating and organizing and scheduling my movements. But I don't need it all of the time. So for me, affirmations are really powerful, and you say them again and again, and are you self-hypnotizing, or are you just reminding yourself of your own inherent power and wisdom? I don't know the definition, the difference in definition there, but I use them because they work to change my reality through me, not somebody else changing it. Yeah.
Okay. Like the Buddha, you said you listen and observe. Now, by listening and observing, how far of the listener and the observer remains in place? Does that dissolve after a while in the just the sheer experience of listening and observing?
The observer within me. The
Yeah.
observer as me.
So, like, if you ask yourself this question, who am I? And then you start observing that, at one point, at least in theory, you're supposed to completely dissolve in that question, where the mind will go back into its own origins. So
I think that
is
there's
that what you meant by saying that you listen and observe? Is that what you meant by when you said that?
In the context in which I live, it's fundamental for me to be able to listen intently and truthfully and understand what is being said.
Okay.
Not just the words that are coming out of somebody's mouth. And it's very important for me to see what is the true nature, what's actually going on around me, instead of just seeing the superficial people playing out roles and not giving me the truth, or acting in a certain way so that they get a certain thing. Most people act in a particular way because they want love, or they want status, or they're looking for some kind of adventure, or they're looking for some kind of safety. But really, when I say that, it's really about, this is what I take most of my clients through, it's about what is actually truthfully going on around you. Can you honestly see it? Do you have rose-tinted glasses of the conditioning of certain aspects of your life? Do you have rose-tinted glasses because you want a certain thing and you're not getting it, so you're going to act a certain way so that you do? And so it comes from a much more solid, grounded place than going into the understanding of the mind and watching the mind. And because for me, I know many people who go down that path and use meditation and all kinds of wonderful tools to do such a thing. But in my case, for me, it doesn't help me create the life that I want to actually live. It creates a kind of duality. It makes me kind of think, I almost kind of lose myself. It makes me think that I'm starting to understand something or be something that only exists in here. And so what value does that bring? It might make me feel better, but most of the time it probably makes me feel superior or a priority in comparison to others.
Right. That's a
Uh,
danger you run. Yeah.
and it is that there's a lot of kind of spiritual masturbation that goes on,
Yep.
because spirituality has just become a business
Absolutely.
in so many ways, and in some ways that's fantastic, and I really I raise my hand and say that's fantastic, because you are allowing people access to understanding themselves and being with themselves. But there is a fine line, as there is with all things. And some of us are not aware, some of us are not able to see clearly where that line is. So we might cross it thinking we are doing good for ourselves, where actually we're not. And then, well, then you might say to me, well, how do we know if we've crossed the line or not? Or and it really comes from taking care of oneself. Really, but really honestly taking care of oneself, not the consuming to make oneself feel good. Taking care of oneself, being one with oneself, just sitting for, I tell so many people that just put an alarm on your telephone or whatever for 2 minutes every day, and just sit there and do nothing, and don't meditate and don't do yoga, don't do anything, just sit there and be with yourself and listen, and let your mind do what it needs to do, and ask yourself, how am I feeling? How does my heart feel? Is my nervous system running like crazy, or is it gentle? Where am I in this space? Am I happy with what's going on around me? If not, shall I make a decision to do it, to change that? I don't know. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But give yourself options within the physical space that you're in, instead of creating some kind of magical, mystical, mental understanding of the universe that may seem wonderful to you, but creates no value to anyone around you.
I think the Beatles tried that, didn't they?
Yeah, but isn't it interesting what happened with the Beatles? You know, where that they went to India to be in this ashram of, I can't remember what his name was. Shai Baba.
I
I
can
can't remember.
Yeah.
And after a while, John Lennon was just like, forget this. This is a waste of time. Can we go back to reality? You know, reality is where you live. It is the solid things around you.
Right.
You have the capacity to manipulate that and work it to your advantage, in a way that either hurts people or doesn't hurt people. It's everything is a choice. There is no right and wrong. People get hurt all the time. People get saved and feel wonderful all of the time, by themselves, by other people. There is no right and wrong. There just is. It's about you deciding your own values and going forth in a way that you're proud of.
Right. Yeah.
For me.
Makes sense. You also have a loads of music that you create, and your bansuri sounds very nice. Do you pick on a certain raga before you start, or is it just free flowing? Or because there are a lot of healing ragas and stuff, so are you really going into it with a particular sound that you want to achieve, or is it you just let things happen and they turn out to be what it is?
It's a really good question. I am a bit of a rebel in that I can't follow normal rules. If somebody says to me, then you must play the bansuri flute this way, or you must learn Indian music in this way, I can't do it, and I run the other way. And I try to learn Western musical theory, and I can't do it. I don't have the intellectual capacity, and I went in the direction of Indian music because of my heritage, and I love it. But again, I haven't learnt it in the special way of the Zakir Hussain
the reason why I'm asking you this is because I know a little bit of music, and most of what you have produced have all stuck to a particular scale. Have stuck to a scale right from the beginning to the end. You haven't really gone out of the scale at any point.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why I asked you this question. So maybe you're doing this unknowingly, but it's what is happening.
Yes, no, it's true. I do. What I do is I just go with how I feel.
Okay.
And for example, there are some rags that I love. I love the sound of Kirwani. I love Hansadvani.
Uh-huh.
There are many that I really, really love listening to. But I hear myself play them, and I record it, or I make a piece of music, and I'm just like, oh, it just sounds awful. It doesn't, because any piece of music that I make, I have to sit with my wife and hear her listen to it. Or I have to, all of the people I know, I have to sit there and hear them listen to it. And inside I'm going, oh God, I hope you like it. And I can't make a piece of music that I don't like myself first. So I do stick to very, very particular scales, because also for me, what's really important is my audience. I'm creating, a lot of musicians create music and then give it to their audience. I'm really trying to create something that for that person, something that's going to be of use to that person, that they can use, that will take them on a journey, that will give them an experience, an experience that comes from my heart. So yeah, it's interesting. I have tried putting all different kinds of scale, Western scales as well. And I go back and I listen, and I'm just like, oh, that sounds awful. And it probably doesn't. It probably sounds lovely.
Sounds good. I like it.
Thank you. But for me, yeah, for me that's just how it turns out. Maybe I'll try something new.
Yeah, have you tried combining the creative visualization with the music to give that as a package?
Well, I do on Insight Timer, when I do these live free live visualizations every Saturday, which is at 10 a.m. EST time. What I do is I play the tempura while talking people through a visualization, or I give people the thing they need to do, and then I'll play the bansuri while they're doing it. Obviously, because I can't talk and play the bansuri at the same time, or right. I'll use a drum. And I'll be talking and taking people through while I'm playing. And often when I'm doing distance healing, and people ask me, well, what shall I do? Shall I meditate? And I give them the option. You can do what you want. You can meditate. You can even be asleep. But also, if you'd like to play this bit of music that I have on Spotify, that will get you into a really nice place. And many people say that's what they do, and it really helps them to connect with me. So,
right, that's awesome. Anything else you would like to talk about?
Anything else I'd like to talk about? I mean, I could talk for hours. This is a subject that it's really dear to my heart. I think I feel so fortunate to have had the life that I've had, with all of its wonderfulness and difficulties and challenges, so that I've got to a point right now today where I'm able to help people all over the world really come to an understanding of themselves and do something about it and do something with it. And so I feel really privileged, genuinely, from my heart. I feel really honored that I get to have a life where I can help people who don't seem to be finding help in a lot of other places. I was working with a guy here in Madrid recently who kept talking about the fact that he does psychotherapy and talk, going every week, every month to talk to a therapist about his life. And he's been going for years and years and years. And I asked him the other day, he's a patient of mine now, a client of mine now, and I said, well, how is that? What do you get from that? How does it feel? And he said, well, it just seems a bit the same. I'm just doing the same thing. I'm not really going to where I want to go. I'm hoping that the therapist is going to take me deeper, but they don't have the capacity to do that because we're only using the voice. We're only using 10% of the entire 100% of communication. And so working with that person, he's come to a realization that he doesn't need anything outside of himself to prove to him that he is okay, or that what he's doing is good or right or just. Because I find there's so much distraction in the world, and there are so many organized systems that we have as human beings that we've orchestrated and designed. Psychotherapy, I'm not saying anything against psychotherapy in any way, it's just an example, but there are so many systems that the entire medical system that we live by, for example, is wonderful if you're in a car crash. But if you have cancer, it's not really doing you any favors. If you have coronavirus, okay, we are creating vaccines left, right, and center and all these kinds of things, but there is never just one way of doing something. There is never just one solution. A human being is far too complex and far too detailed to just feel that there is only one way of doing something. There is only one religion. There is only one God. There is only, it's too basic for us. We're just enormously complex beings. So I really feel, I feel really honored that I have found a way that is of use.
And what a curious mix of the seen and the unseen, right? Starting with the human and starting with everything around us. I mean, they seem to exist in so many planes, in the material plane, and the psychic plane, and in the So it's a complete state of flux. I'm thinking. I mean, I get these visions sometimes that the whole thing is in a state of constant flux. And to borrow a cliche, the only certainty is the uncertainty of it all.
And that's great, because we love certainty. Human beings, we love safety. Men,
we love structure, yes.
Yeah, men, they work hard until everything's comfortable, and then they just don't care.
Plop.
They go, right, that's it. I've got everything I need. I'm done. No,
right.
We love certainty, but we also need adventure, and we need new, different things. Because if you give a human being the same food every day, even if it's ice cream or the food you love, if you ate the same food every single day for a year, you would be sick of it by the end of that year. True. So we're so creative, and most of us have come into the world, and as a child, pretty much all of us are geniuses, and we're all just wonderful, creative explosions as children. And then we get put in a box, and then another, then the sides of the box get put on, and they get slowly higher and higher, and then eventually someone puts a lid on the box, then they put some string around the box, and then they cover the string with something else, and before you know it, you're
boxed in.
You're completely boxed in. And you don't understand why. You feel completely unfulfilled, and you don't understand why your life is just meaningless.
Right.
And so I love the fact that I could help bring people real solid meaning into their lives using tools like visualizations, like affirmations, like meditation, like storytelling, like all kinds of things. Because I'd love to just see people grow and break out. When you see the box break, it's like, I'm so proud of that person for just, and nothing physical happened. Nothing changed at all. But inside they just went,
yeah.
I'm done with that. And it's wonderful. It's so wonderful.
Yeah, it's almost like being let out after a life sentence.
Yeah.
You suddenly find that there was so much of freedom that existed. And in one of those things that I'm also, I did delve a little bit into tarot cards and stuff. And so there's one card with the blindfold on, which tells you that, I mean, those chains, I don't know which card that is, but there are loose chains around people, which is supposed to signify that you think you're chained, but you're not, because you can easily slip out of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, today I've had 4 clients today. One of my clients, so I do a thing called a healing ceremony, whereby I connect to your base frequency, no matter where you are in the world, and really help it rebalance and then relay back to you what came out. And just found that this person, I'm not going to give you the exact details because it's personal and private, but this person was just that. They was so boxed in that it was like inside What they are showing me, because I'm not plucking magic out of the air, I don't believe in that, I'm connecting to a person's essence.
Right.
Inside this person was a lion, but this lion had this understanding that it was like a bird in a cage. And I relayed that back to the person, and it was one of those
epiphanies.
Yes, that's how I feel, but I couldn't put it into words. Wonderful, you know. So yeah, I feel myself as a really fortunate individual to just be someone who gets to help other people in a way that's effective.
And I'm going to try this out sometime. How busy are you?
I am pretty busy, but I mean, I do have clients all over the world. I'm just starting to get loads of people in Australia and New Zealand. But yeah, let's talk privately, and
Yeah, we will.
and I'll find you a date probably in a few weeks. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll fill in the form on your website, and yeah, we'll take it from there.
Or just send me an email.
Okay, I'll do that.
Or I'll send you an email after we're done. Yeah.
Okay, it's been great talking with you, Jim. I enjoyed it. As you can see, most of my questions are from my own perspective of seeking. I was not trying to be argumentative or anything, but I just wanted to know more for my own sake.
No, I think they were wonderful questions. You weren't argumentative at all. I think it's really important to just be clear and plain and honest and transparent, because there is so much pretending to be transparent in the world now that say what you feel, say what you think, ask the questions even if they hurt or if they're painful, because otherwise everything just stays the same.
Yeah.
No?
True. So thank you very much for your time.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Bye-bye.